Thank you, FANdation. We're back with another recap of our favorite, I don't even know who's really in charge anymore, show, FANdation. I'm your host, Anthony. I'm going to do my best to be your guide in this far-out show as we're actually picking up where episode 3 ended, where we finally catch up with Gaal, Salvor, and Harry, reacting to the fact that Harry has a new body now, and meeting the X-Men. Meeting the Mentallics. This episode is titled Decided in the Scene, which we learn is a cool description for the people that our trio encounter on the planet Ignus. The people there refer to themselves as decided and have the uncanny ability to read people's thoughts, project images into people's minds, and seemingly suggest control and even dominate the minds of others. This incredible group is supposed to be the home of the second FANdation, but something tells me that's easier said than done. But first, do me a favor. If you're new here, please consider giving this channel a like and subscribe to keep up with our weekly FANdation analyses and breakdowns. Look, I see that these videos are getting a few hundred, sometimes 1,000 views, and I'm truly, deeply grateful for you allowing me to have your time, as I understand how valuable that is. I would truly be grateful if you could also please hit that like button. The videos are getting several hundred to 1,000 views, but the video is only getting maybe 100 likes. Please hit the like button, please. YouTube still uses this to help smaller channels like me to grow, even in 2023. Please like, subscribe, enable notifications so you're able to watch these videos right after they're published every Friday in order to work with us to try to figure out the mystery of FANdation. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. This week's episode opens with Raish. We're treated to a flashback of the conversation between Raish and Harry right before Harry was killed, way back when they were headed to found the first FANdation. Harry says to Raish that more than anyone, he knows what's really at stake, and that line kind of stands out right before we get to see the moment when Raish plunges the knife into Harry's stomach. We then see Harry waking from what must have been a nightmare, and oh snaps! Your boy Harry is now having dreams to go along with his new body that was previously given to him by the Prime Radiant Gaal. But when Harry wakes, it seems like the dream is still going, with Raish approaching Harry on Salvor's ship. Harry asks if he's still dreaming, and Raish tells him that this meeting isn't a dream, and confirms that he died on the Deliverance 130 years ago. They have a really interesting conversation, with Raish stating that Harry has everyone fooled into thinking that he cares about others, but seemingly condemns Harry when he says that Harry never really cared about Raish or anyone. Raish also says that this is why Harry is going to fail, because he doesn't care who lives or dies, and talks about the moments leading up to his passing, and says that Harry let him die, and that they both know that it wasn't the first time, and then he's gone. Now, this moment had me scratching my head to try to understand what the heck it is we just saw. I feel like this scene is a clue into the significance of Harry's new body. Now, we've seen Harry have visions of prior moments from his past before, and we last saw that happen when Harry White, was in the Prime Radiant. I think this could be like that, and that maybe the Prime Radiant is again impersonating someone Harry recognizes in order to help his mind adjust to his new situation. It feels like the Prime Radiant has its own agenda, and I can't help but wonder what that agenda is and its ultimate plans for Harry in the grand scheme of things. Something is definitely up, I just don't know what yet. Harry wakes up again, except this time there's no Raish. Harry starts exploring the ship, playing with water, and even finds the dagger that Raish used to end his life originally all those years ago. Harry uses it to make sure he's really real and see if this new body of his can actually bleed. He can, and it does. Harry, now dressed, meets up with Gaal and Salvor a bit later, with these two ladies wanting answers on how Harry has a body now. Harry doesn't know, but tells them how the manifestations of the Prime Radiant appeared to him as the mathematician Gaal, and instructed him to go to Ignus world without giving much detail on what to expect. Salvor figures that Gaal cloned Harry, and Gaal makes a joke about how the genetic dynasty now has a rival, and for real, she's not far from the truth. Harry White is here alive and running loose here on Salvor's ship, but there's still another Harry Black, that's stationed on Terminus and inside the vault. The irony is not lost on Harry or on me. They even talk about the other Harry for a bit as they get information on the current events after waking from their 130-year naps. They find out that the Foundation is spreading and that the other Harry is being sold as a prophet with his own religion and magicians and more. Harry White does not seem at all surprised by the direction of the Foundation and kind of just stone-faced and moved on from the conversation altogether. We then see them on the bridge as they seem to have arrived at the planet Ignus. Their spaceship begins to malfunction as they enter the atmosphere, with Harry screaming for his new dear life, but Salvor is able to land the ship well enough for everyone to walk away. Salvor has sense and immediately grabs her rifle to survey the area and assess the threat level on this new planet. Harry says some slick shit to Gaal and urges her to stick to the plan and not let her vision of Salvor's death affect her judgment. We then switch to Sareth, Rue, and the snitch Markley back on Trantor. The snitch, Markley, lets Sareth know that there's no available footage of the attack on Brother Day in his bedchambers, nor is there any evidence in Empire's involvement in the death of her family. Sareth then dismisses Markley, but is surprised to learn that the attack on Brother Day happened in his bedroom, and immediately makes plans to gain access to his bedchamber so she can take a look for herself. Rue doesn't like the plan, but Sareth is determined to get answers. We then switch to Day's bedchambers, with Demerzel joining Day as he informs her that Sareth wants to knock boots. Demerzel gives him some words of encouragement and a pat on the nuts for good luck before leaving the room as Sareth arrives. Day does his best to look sexy and confident and invites Sareth into the room and get comfortable. Sareth notices the statues/monuments of Cleon throughout the room and notices that some of the statues appear damaged. Day brushes it off and says that they're just old, but Sareth is absolutely investigating the scene of the crime and looking for more information. They talk for a bit, with Sareth noticing that Day is still wearing his personal aura and probes to see if there are circumstances in Effin that he would turn it off. They begin enjoying some foreplay and they have some technical difficulties when attempting to copulate, and the whole thing just looks awkward. Things get especially awkward when Day himself has some technical difficulties. Sareth offers to help, but Day is all the way embarrassed and tells her not to talk. Yo, Sareth is messed up. Like, she's trying her best to not burst into laughter, with Day realizing that Sareth has done this before and even admits that he knows that Sareth's lover died in the same accident as her family. Day then realizes that Sareth is only here in order to investigate the assassination attempt from the beginning of the season. And, yo, how the F did he put all that together? From giggling? Yo, he confronts Sareth and accuses her of hiring the assassins that almost killed him, with Sareth quickly and wisely pivoting and admitting that she was snooping around, but was only trying to assess her safety as the queen in a castle and a bedchamber in which Day almost died. Day falls for it and says he will assure her safety. The conversation gets heated, with them agreeing to move forward with the marriage, but deciding not to knock boots. Sareth leaves Day in his bedchamber, and Demerzel re-enters. They chat for a bit, and Demerzel tells Day that she made sure that there was no evidence of Day's involvement in Sareth's family's death. And yo, I knew it. I think we all knew it. Brother Day absolutely had something to do with the death of Sareth's family, and Day knows that she's a threat because of how smart she is. Demerzel does her best to reassure Day and climbs in bed with him. We then flash back 30 years to a different brother Day and a woman in these same bedchambers. It took me a second, but I realized that this is the current brother Dusk when he was still brother Day, and the woman he's with is handmaiden Rue from Dominion. They talk briefly, and I mean talk briefly because they're here for a good time, when the camera pulls back and we see that Dusk and Rue are watching their sex tape from back in the day. They then rewind the tape further to show us how they first met in Gossamer Court, which is like a brothel for Empire. We see how they meet, with Rue explaining that her memories end at that exact moment, as we know that Dusk made sure to have her memories erased after their encounter. They pillow talk for a while about their past before proceeding with some sexy time. We then switch back to the planet Ignus, with Salvor doing her sweep of the area. She hears someone approaching, but is able to get the drop on them when the person sneaking up on her reveals himself to be Salvor's lover, Hugo Krast. He tells Salvor how he put himself in a cryopod in order to reunite with Salvor whenever she awoke, and Salvor is overcome with emotions and they kiss. We then switch back to the ship with Gaal and Harry talking as Gaal is performing repairs. Harry apologizes? Yeah. Harry apologizes for being such a dick to Gaal earlier about her vision of Salvor. Harry actually tries to cheer Gaal up a bit when he tells her that not all of her visions come true, and even acknowledges that Salvor is Raish's child too, making Salvor Harry's granddaughter. And shit, yo, I don't think I ever thought about it that way. They talk a bit more before the sensors alert them about the return of Salvor and Hugo. Harry is rightfully cautious and tells Gaal to hide the Prime Radiant. Harry locks them out of the ship, with Salvor confused about what the problem is. Harry scans them both and sees something isn't right about Hugo's weight, and tells Gaal that he's not with the shit. He challenges Salvor to prove that this is actually Hugo by returning control of the ship to him, because it's genetically encoded to him. Just as Salvor does this, Gaal sees that they're about to be ambushed, with fake Hugo revealing himself to be a black dude with a knife. Just as this happens, someone blows a hole on the other side of the ship, forcing their way into, with Harry trying his best to defend himself with a hammer. It doesn't work, and the group of people appear to somehow be able to force everyone to go to sleep. And wait, why didn't Salvor know this guy was lying? Isn't that like her superpower? Like, isn't she supposed to be able to see the truth in things? Right? That's her thing, right? Anyway, we switch back to Trantor, with Sareth and Rue meeting back up in the jungle with Markley as they're discussing everything they've learned from their meetings with the Cleons. Sareth tells Rue what she learned about the assassination attempt, and Rue tells Sareth that the Cleons' memories are backed up into a central database called the Memoriam. Sareth asks Markley to go to the Memoriam and see if he can gain access to the memories of the medical staff that attended to Brother Day's wounds after the attack. We then switch to Markley in the Memoriam requesting the memories from the librarian/keeper. The librarian then plugs into the Matrix and hands Markley a drive with the memories that he requested. We then switch to Brother Dusk speaking with Demerzel, and he's not too happy. He learns that Brother Day is the only Cleon with the authority to alter his memories, and also the memories of Dusk and Dawn. He learns that Brother Day is the only Cleon with the authority to alter his own memories, but he also has the authority to alter the memories of Brother Dusk and Brother Dawn. He learns that Brother Day actually diminished Dusk's and Dawn's authority after that assassination attempt and didn't bother to tell his brothers about the change. Dusk is deeply disturbed as he realizes that it's entirely possible for Day to change his memories, and he'd have no idea if it actually happened. Demerzel tries to give him some reassurance by reminding him that his memories are backed up in the Memoriam, and in addition to that, Demerzel remembers everything, and her memories are unalterable, and how her programming forces her to serve Empire at all times, not just Day. She then says something ominous as what when she says, "I will always be here as I've always have been." And this whole scene seems ominous. The lighting, the camera angles, and the fact that Dusk is talking to Demerzel by himself. Something is off here, but let's keep that in the back of our minds for now. We then switch to Markley meeting back up with Sareth and handing her the drive with the memories that she requested. We see the memory of those moments when Day was injured, with Demerzel walking around with half a head. The sight of Demerzel without a head freaks everyone out, with Sareth and Rue both in disbelief until Sareth also figures out that Demerzel was in the bedroom with Brother Day, and she's a robot. We then switch to Dusk and Dawn in the clone room, headed to the body of Cleon I. Dusk and Dawn are seeking counsel from the memory of Cleon I and begin discussing how Brother Day has diminished their authority when it comes to their memories, and apparently, Dusk is pissed. Dawn asks if their altered DNA won't allow them the ability to speak to Cleon, with Dusk warning him not to mention their altered DNA, as Cleon I might lower the ceiling on them. And wait, what? Are they really shooketh of the dead Cleon? They press their palms on the glass and speak a prayer, and are met by the ghost of Cleon I, who appears to be a digital backup of his memories given life. They speak with this Cleon and tell him that Brother Day is taking too much power. Cleon tells him that he doesn't give a flying fuck about their squabbles and tells them that they need to get in line because he designed them to all be in harmony. Dusk and Dawn don't like it, but Cleon is fresh out of fucks to give before he throws up the deuces and dips. We then switch to Dusk and Dawn at the memoriam, auditing the memory files of all the Cleons. Their goal is to compare the file sizes of the memories of all the Cleons to compare with their own. Interestingly, that weird painting wall stretches all the way into the memoriam as well, and they come across an image depicting Emperor Algrid. They talk about one of the brushstrokes, a green one, which is the mark of a betrayer, and it seems like the show is highlighting this image as it stays in frame for a while. I can't help but notice that there's a woman beside the image of Algrid. I can't also help but wonder, is that Demerzel? They mentioned that Algrid was executed for high treason. I wonder if that actually is Demerzel and if she had anything to do with that old empire. Also, we've seen that hint of green brushstroke before. Last episode, we talked about the skinless man who was depicted on another section of the wall. If I remember correctly, he also had a hint of green around his neck too. I don't quite know what it means, but I did see in the comments that a few people theorized that the skinless man may have been a machine himself, and if so, then he also had the mark of a betrayer. Something tells me we'll be revisiting this later, but I love how FANdation is doing its world building by providing all these details about how their world used to be. Dusk then talks about how conflicts arose during his reign that he didn't address himself, and instead he allowed Demerzel to address the conflicts on his behalf. He also mentions how Day was ashamed of Dusk's inactions even when he was a little boy. Dawn tries to cheer him up, but Dusk is lost in his pity party. The Cleons are then handed the results of their memory audit and start comparing the file sizes of their memories. They see that their memory files are about the average size of all the Cleons, with a few exceptions here and there. I can't help but notice that some have really, really small file sizes like 23 and 43, which makes me wonder if those Cleons lived a full life, or maybe their lives ended early, forcing Empire to decant new ones over the years. They then compare the file sizes to that of Cleon I, who had almost triple the file size of all the other Cleons that followed. Triple! Dusk then rightfully wonders if Cleon I lived that much fuller of a life, or do the clones have things missing from all of their memories? They decide to do nothing for now until they can find leverage, and just like that, Empire doesn't seem like they're at the top of the food chain anymore. We then switch to Gaal, Salvor, and Harry waking from that ambush from earlier in the episode. Lovingly, the first thing Gaal worries about when she wakes up is Salvor, and I can't help but love how her maternal instincts just kicked in when she found out that Salvor was her daughter. Gaal has hardly had very much time with Salvor, but she is absolutely one of her top priorities in her life, and I just think that this is great writing by the storytellers. It's a small but critical personality shift that has developed Gaal's character in a really meaningful way. They start exploring their surroundings and realize their weapons are gone. There are no guards nearby holding them captive, so they decide to explore when Gaal and Salvor are able to hear whispers and voices that Harry doesn't hear. They then make their way to a room with a bunch of people dressed in all white surrounding a little girl sitting on an altar. The little girl introduces herself as Tel'Mbon, the 7th incarnation of Pa'ar, the goddess of light. Harry, Gaal, and Salvor introduce themselves by first and last name, except for Salvor, but Pa'ar knew her last name anyway, surprising everybody. They talk for a bit about their situation when Harry notices that the goddess is an illusion. He sees that she's not casting a shadow. The real Tel'Mbon then introduces herself as a grown-ass woman. Now, I can't help but notice something really interesting in the way that Tel'Mbon speaks. She sounds normal for the most part, except when she asks, "What brings you to our world?" And if you listen real carefully, you'll notice that her voice sort of echoes and distorts when she asks that question. Tel'Mbon explains that it was her voice that compelled Salvor and Gaal to come to their location, and explains it's something that she does to call others like her to her location. Some people call them Mentallics. She prefers sighted, and I prefer telepaths. Like, Professor X telepaths. She says she calls to other telepaths to bring them as if she's a lighthouse to bring them to a safe haven. She also explained that others in the galaxy were hunted and killed for being different. And this really is the X-Men. Hunted and feared for being different? Yeah, those are mutants. They talk a bit more about the sighted, and Harry figures out that it was Tel'Mbon in his head at the beginning of the episode pretending to be Raish. They agree to talk tomorrow about Harry's plan for a second FANdation, and as Harry, Gaal, and Salvor leave the room, the mutants talk among themselves about the Prime Radiant. The guy that was pretending to be Salvor's lover earlier seems to have sketched it out and has a drawing of the Prime Radiant that he shows Tel'Mbon, and it feels like the telepaths may have been reading our trio's minds during that entire conversation. Tel'Mbon then puts on her scary voice again when she says that she's gonna find that Prime Radiant, and she's gonna break it. Ain't gonna be no second FANdation. And then, end credits. And wow, things are starting to get really exciting in the world of FANdation. I gotta admit, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't catch up with the other group of heroes like Polly and Holborg, but I do really enjoy the grand scale of this show. This new site that's being assessed as the home of the second FANdation is really interesting. Mentallics? Psychic powers? Now, all of Gaal and Salvor's visions make more sense as they seem to both be sighted. Is this a hereditary trait? Did Gaal's parents also have psychic powers? Were those really Gaal's parents? And what's going on with Empire? Brother Day is paranoid as all what, and his cold war with his brothers is sure to come to a head at some point, especially with Queen Sarah doing everything in her power to stir the pot. I don't know what Sarah's endgame is, as she's seemingly encouraging the infighting among the Cleons, but it's not clear how she imagines things will end when the dust is settled. Are you all as excited for this next episode as I am? Let me know what you think about this episode in the comments. And before you go, please, 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 hit the like button, I would love if you also subscribe, but if you choose not to, I get it. But at least, please hit the like button before you go. It's a small ask that helps me in a big way. But thank you again, FANdation. I'm looking forward to catching up again next Friday. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to check you all later. Peace.